Lionhearts, it's your old pal Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said well. I'm doing well. We're gonna go off and do a filming location vlog today for the 1980 classic 9 to 5. We're Dolly Parton, Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin. Now this was a groundbreaking movie for its time because they tackled the issue of unfair treatment of women in the workplace, and they did it in the form of a comedy. And it's a really great movie, really hilarious, and it was filmed right here in Los Angeles. Now I'd heard this great story about how basically the cast came to be. Jane Fonda was already going to do 9 to 5, but she met Dolly Parton on an airplane, and they became fast friends and got along the whole way, and Jane was like, you have to do this movie with us. And Dolly apparently didn't necessarily feel comfortable doing it because she thought, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, those are comedy heavyweights, those are real actresses, and she just didn't think she would add up. If you ask me, I think Dolly did a great job in this movie. I think she holds her own, and one of her stipulations for doing the movie, basically when Lily got to meet Dolly as well, she was like, yeah, you're perfect for this movie. Dolly wanted to do the theme song, and that very, very memorable hit, 9 to 5, Dolly actually wrote on her fingernails. She took one set of fingernails and scratched them across the other, coming up with a beat, and she said that to me sounded like a typewriter. And from there, she just started writing the lyrics to 9 to 5, and it became a classic. The movie's a classic, and I'm excited to go see some of the locations today. You guys going with me? Great! Daze with Jordan the Lion, it begins right now. And today is also a special Patreon sunglass vlog for Annette Heath. Annette, I hope that you like 9 to 5. So the building at 800 West 6th Street was consolidated. That was the company that Franklin Hart is the, well, he's like the vice president of this division, this branch of it. And he is a major sexist. And when they made this movie, part of what they were trying to do was, you know, to get the point across that women were not treated fairly, they were not receiving equal pay, and they realized when they were in production that it could come off very preachy if they weren't careful, so they decided to make it a comedy. And the first time that we see this is in the opening credits. We see this, but then we see Judy Bernley, Jane Fonda, who's also our producer of this picture, walking right here. She's at this corner, and we see a shot of these buildings in the background of her as she's walking to her first day at the office. She's just been hired as a secretary here because her husband has left her for a secretary and she needs a job. It looks like to me, when you watch the movie, they very well may have rented out the 12th floor for this to film it, because all the shots out the window, you see this building in the background behind them. So even on her first day, Franklin Hart, when he meets her, he's trying to seem compassionate while yet telling her how beautiful she is and hitting on her. And we find out that's pretty much his MO. Everyone that works on his floor is a woman secretary. He has many of them on that floor. And he says he likes to be there where he can be like a shoulder for his girls to cry on, and he always calls them his girls and things like that. So we meet early on Lily Tomlin's character here, Violet, who we find out actually trained Franklin Hart, and she trains everyone, and she knows more about this company than pretty much anyone. And every time there's a promotion coming up, she gets passed over because she's a woman. So beginning of this movie, she believes that she's up for a promotion, and she's just waiting it out, hoping for that day. She knows that she's up for review in about 6 weeks, and when that time comes, Frank Hart says, sorry, I'm giving the promotion to someone else. And she says, but I trained him, and I have 7 years seniority over him. And he says, well, you know, people want to deal with men when it comes to numbers. So she is extremely angry and frustrated and ends up walking out and going off to the bar, Charlie's bar, that we're going to go to next. But we see this quite a bit, or at least the scenes inside of here. Once they've kidnapped Frank Hart, they believe that no one will even miss him. And once they realize after a couple days nobody's really missing him, they decide to start making some changes. And this is where the magic of the movie really happens to hammer their point home about women being equal, or, you know, in some cases greater than a man in a job. Because at the end of the movie, once Frank has brought them to the office and he's about to call the police, turn them in, he finds out the chairman of the board is here. And the chairman of the board, at the beginning of the movie, Frank is always preaching teamwork, that everything should be done for teamwork and for the good of the team. And once the chairman of the board comes here, he's amazed at what all the changes that have been made and how productivity, which is all the changes the women have made, Dolly, Jane Fonda, and Lily Tomlin, their characters have made all these changes. All those changes have made productivity go up. So Frank is getting rewarded, and they're gonna promote him and send him off to Brazil. So it's kind of like a catch-22. He's looked at as a valuable member and he gets a promotion, but he's forced to take it in Brazil. Kind of cool to see this. I've always loved that movie, and the movie was so good. It was a huge hit at the box office. It made a ton of money, but they had a television spin-off, or not a spin-off, but a television version of this that lasted for 5 successful seasons. And unfortunately, the light pole here that we see her going around is a different one. It doesn't have any of the ridges or anything like the one in the movie. So when Violet doesn't get her promotion, she goes off on Franklin Hart, and that's the reason that she ends up leaving work and going to Charlie's bar to get a drink. But when she's walking out of the office, she says, "I don't want you calling me your girl. I am an employee. I want to be treated equally. I'm not your wife. I'm not your girlfriend. I'm not your mistress," and points to Dora Lee, who's Dolly Parton in the movie. And Dora Lee gets angry, and that's when she goes on that rant and says, "I could turn you in from a rooster to a hen with one shot, but I won't do it because the way I was brought up." And she just goes off on him, and she storms out and decides to go to the bar as well. So let's go over to where Charlie's bar was. Well, that's interesting. I've never seen this. There's a ruler on the side of this building that says property of the public schools. Huh. And Charlie's bar is actually on the same street. It's on 6th Street, but instead of the 800 block, it's on the 500 block. So Charlie's bar was actually right here, right where this open entryway is. That was where the girls all walk 3 blocks down the street, literally. I mean, it's on it's on 8th Street, so they come down here, and this is where they're inside drinking, and they're talking about how they're just never going to get treated fairly because they're women. And while they're sitting there talking, Violet says that they need to relax, they need to unwind, and that her son had given her a joint and thinks they should spark it up, and she pulls it out right there. This is a big deal because everybody had shunned Dora Lee through the whole movie because they think she's sleeping with the boss, and now that they know she's not, she's cool, basically, you know. They're all friends, you know, now they're all friends. So it's Judy and Violet and Dora Lee here, all with that joint pulled out, and they talk about it actually going and smoking it in the bathroom, but Dora Lee says, "Oh, no, somebody will come in, they'll catch us." She goes, "To tell you the truth, that stuff really doesn't do much for me. But we can go to my house because my husband's out playing a gig." Her husband's like a country singer, and she says he's out playing a gig, so we can go to my house. And next thing you know, they're at her house getting stoned, laughing, and eating. And Charlie's actually took up quite a bit of this block. This Tender Greens would have been Charlie's because the address was actually 507, and the address here is now 523. So that tells you it was, at the time, it was right here. Sorry, I said this was 8th Street. It's actually 6th Street. If you're coming to find it yourself, this is 6th Street downtown. It's actually right around the corner from the historic Millennium Biltmore Hotel. Right there. I've vlogged inside of here before. Oh, that's a great sign. Look at that. So this apartment building right here was Judy Burnley, Jane Fonda's apartment in the movie. Now when we see this, it's a different set of stairs right here, but they give you a shot of her walking up the stairs here, and you can see that house over there while she's walking up here. And then when she gets to this landing, she sees her husband is right there, and she gets hopeful for a minute and thinks that he's coming back, but when he turns around, he has the divorce papers. Tells her that he wants her to sign the papers. You can see that window up there in the shot. And then she tells him that she got a job as a secretary, and it gets awkward there for a minute because he left her for his secretary. And his secretary is actually waiting in his car that would have been right here. You can see when he's up there, they do a shot down, you can see his car down here, and you can match it up because you can see that garage door and a little bit of this in the shot from across. But you can also match up that same unique rock sidewalk right there in the shot when he's going to get back in his car. It's a pretty sad moment for her. And then we see them pass each other up here, and she goes in the apartment. As you can see, we made it to Glendale, and this is where the hospital is that they bring Franklin Hart. Once he's passed out and they don't know what's going on, they rush him to the hospital. Right behind me, it doubles as St. Ambrose Hospital in the movie. So we get this shot right here of Violet Newstead and Judy racing in Violet's car, coming towards us, and then she pulls up and parks right here. And they've changed the front entrance a little bit, but this is the same entrance. So what's happening here is that Frank has been rushed here so they can find out what's wrong with him. And once he wakes up, he realized these doctors are just going to try and hit him with a bill, so he walks out. But once Violet and Judy walk in, they overhear the doctors walking out of the examination room saying that he's passed away and that it was by poison. Now this freaks him out because Violet accidentally had put rat poison in his coffee. When she thought it was Skinny and Sweet, the creamer, she accidentally put rat poison. So she starts freaking out and tries to steal Frank's body. So we see her racing around the hospital trying to steal the body, and then she comes running out this door when the door was right here. Now it's an open entrance, and you can see the name of the hospital right here. She pushes the gurney with who she thinks is Frank, puts him in her car right here, throws the gurney down there, and then gets in the car with the other girls and races off. So these are the doors that Violet would have pushed the body out through. And I'll show you matching shots. And what's interesting is that when the sign was up here, you could still see that light in the shot when she's coming out here, right about there. Now the true comedy here is that once they drive off, they end up wrecking, and the trunk pops open, Dolly goes around back, or her name's Dora Lee in the movie, she goes around back and she looks and she sees that is not Franklin Hart. And they find out that Frank is not dead. Well, first they find out that they have the wrong body and they need to bring it back, and then they find out that Frank is not dead. Pretty cool to match it all up now though. As we go down here, I'll show, you can see this building in the background of the shot of her driving in. You see those two rails right there on the side, you can see those in the shot. So here we are, next location, the Ajax Warehouse. We see the girls in Violet's car come driving up right up here, and they park right here in front of this door right there. And Violet has got a suspicion that something's going on. She's trying to find something to get Mr. Hart on because he wants to, you know, basically get these girls for trying to kill him. And so they've kidnapped him and they're trying to find something to get him on, and Violet sees there's an Ajax Warehouse. So when we see the Ajax Warehouse, right under the address, you can see there used to be 2 windows that they've covered up. So right here where the garage door starts at the top was where the Ajax Warehouse sign was in the movie. And that's when Dolly points over here that there's a bunch of conveniently located boxes that work their way up. And so Violet gets on the boxes, climbs up, and right up here would have been where the window was that she's looking in, and she sees that it's an empty warehouse. So she knows that this private deal that Franklin Hart has with Ajax, he's basically embezzling money, and he's sold merchandise and claiming it's in this warehouse, but they now know that it's empty. So Violet goes to the head office, the corporate office, and asks for the records, and they tell her first that it's going to be 3 or 4 days, but then they say they're changing over their databases and it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks. So they realize they now have to basically hold Frank hostage for that time, or the 4 to 6 weeks maybe even it was, until they get the records. So they see that here, and then while they have Frank locked up at his house, which we'll go to next, eventually Frank's wife comes home early from her vacation, lets Frank loose, and Frank managed to organize to have this warehouse stocked full of things, full of merchandise, in that 3 days that he's been loose, and the women didn't know that he was loose. So when they show up here again, driving up here, Violet appears here, climbs up on top of the boxes, gets up there, is looking in that top window that used to be there, and she sees that it's full of boxes and people working, forklifts moving around. So they realize that Frank has outsmarted them. If you look at this right here, you can tell the Ajax sign would have been right there, and the 2 windows have been bricked up, but they were right on either side of the address. Now, much like when Violet finds the warehouse, it's up for rent. It's empty. So now we're gonna go ahead and head all the way out to Bel Air onto Bellagio Road and try and find Franklin Hart's house. Look at those bears out in front of that bank. Classic. A little traffic on the way there. Been a while since I've been to Bel Air. Been a long while. Mainly because there's nowhere to park. We've turned into Bel Air. We're looking for Bellagio. So it's actually going to be right down here to the left, right past all this black security stuff. So this is Frank's house. This is where, after they've hogtied him, Dorley's hogtied him in his office trying to figure out what they're going to do with him, they decided to bring him here to his own house because his wife is off on that 4-week cruise. So they end up tying him up, locking him up and everything here. What they end up doing is creating with a garage door opener, with a garage door system, they end up securing him in his room with handcuffs and to where he can't have but just limited movement, and then they all agree to stay here and watch him on shifts. And then during the day he's left alone, and his wife ends up coming back early and freeing him. Yeah, unfortunately, all of a sudden Dorley gets a phone call, and it's Frank's wife thanking her for the flowers and saying that she came back early and saw Frank was using some sort of weird new exercise device, and she's like, did you say you came back early? And how long have you been back? And she realizes that Frank has been pretending to be tied up for the last 3 or 4 days. Well, all right, Lionhearts, I hope you enjoyed this vlog on 9 to 5. I love that movie. I think Dabney Coleman is hilarious. I think Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Dolly Parton are all amazing in it as well. So go watch it. It's definitely a throwback to why things are, you have all of the training for discrimination and all that stuff in the workplace because of movies like this, because people used to be like this in the workplace. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Adriana Morley, for becoming my newest Patreon. And we'll see you all somewhere else in our next vlog. Have a great night and goodbye.